Welcome back. It's a terrific Tuesday, Chaos Conversation. And you can check us out on Twitter. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Instagram, TikTok, and here on YouTube. Because today we have a special guest for y'all that hopefully can answer all y'all curious questions about, how to keep a marriage, how to stay in one, and how to maintain one. And still, you don't have to live by what society is teaching you. You got to do what works for you. So today, I have a guest, Miss Wanda Short.
Hi, how are you?
The living legend here in the North Carolina area.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
that's nice of you to say.
Uh-huh. And for those of y'all who know the cosmetology, industry, you've heard of her. But Miss Short, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and share with the audience what you do and how long you've been married?
Well, I am Wanda Short, and I am from South Carolina originally, but I've been in North Carolina now for over 40 years, and I've been married for 40 years, and but with the same person for the last 43 years,
Okay.
and I am the owner of Cheryl's University of Barber and Cosmetology. I am also the owner of Billionaires Barbershop in Triangle Mall and Tower Shopping Center. And my sons own Billionaires in Cary and the one in Midtown and soon to be Crabtree Valley Mall.
All
So
right.
we are expanding, yes.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So, Mish, with all due respect to your time, I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into it because a lot of people on this channel they wonder, why are marriages not lasting as long, in this time for a lot of the people who are my age to say 20 and above, they want to know what's happening, what has been going on. And could you share with them what's been working for you and your husband, you and your family, for 40, like you said, 40 years.
Well, I believe that one of the first things that my husband and I did was, we started the relationship off with a committed statement, and that we were going to do this for life. And no matter what, I think that was one of the main things, that we made a committed statement, made a decision that we never promised each other that we would always be faithful. So we understood that there was a possibility that infidelity might enter into our relationship on either part. And then not only that, but we entered into the relationship. Um, let me go back. And I think that's what kind of covers your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that nothing is a surprise, and all things are, anything can be expected at any time under any circumstances, and if it were to happen, let me be the first to know. Don't let someone else tell me that it has occurred. And then not only that, but if you find someone else that you love better than you love me, then you be the one to tell me, and I'll say goodbye. I'll be free to walk away. You go live your life, because we only have this one life that we are promised, and we should be with someone who we can that we can love unconditionally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even in the good days and the bad days, and sometimes we get married to people only based on the physical aspects and not necessarily on what's on the inside.
I love that. I love that last part you said, and that goes to the ladies and the gentlemen. 'Cause you guys always get on my back about, I ain't married, I ain't never been married, and blase blase. But see, listening to, couples like Mr. Short and Mr. Short, I haven't spoken to him lately, but I mean that everything she just said is what I have heard in the past when I interviewed couples. A lot of what Miss Short just said, Mrs. Short just said. Let me get that right. Put some respect on it. My bad, my bad. But
That's all
see,
right.
yes, and just saying that, and it's when I hear you say that, and I hear couples today, because a lot of couples in today's time who are my age and younger, or maybe a little tad bit older, we're sitting here, and a lot of times what I hear from people is the minute the tough times, they may talk about the tough times that are going to happen, but the minute the tough times hit, it's like, where's the divorce papers? I'm ready for it. It's like they give up too fast. when I hear the stories today of why,
Right.
this person and that person not with their spouse anymore. Um,
Because there's weaknesses that are there. That's when in all persons. And not only that, but the tempter comes in all different forms or fashions. And we tend to disregard the fact that it may happen. And I'll share this with, because everybody should be an adult that is on that's watching. But sometimes we let everybody into the cookie store
mhm,
without any with total access and
mhm,
without any contributions at all. I not only that, but um, having intimacy um, is so easy for people. I wanted to know whether or not he was going to linger. Why are you here? Are you just here because it's physical, or first of all, I need to get to know who you are. So before intimacy came, I visited the mom. I
okay.
went and visited family. I got to know who he was, not who he said he was, but who he was behind the scenes.
Okay. I hope the audience heard that, because Mrs. Short just said she visited the family. Okay. She ain't just let him in. In today's time, I don't feel as many couples do that, to go visit the family. Some even go possibly to visit the friends, whichever one they hear the, future spouse possibly talk about, but go and visit those who know the man or the woman that you want to be with, because that to me is what I call a slight background check of your own. I ain't talking about going downtown to file the paperwork background check. I mean, doing your own background check on the person you want to be with. Because and another thing you touched on, Mr. Short, was not allowing too much of your business to be put out there. Do you feel that's why a lot of couples may be so fast to let go of a marriage, because they put too much of their business out there on social media these days?
They're comparing. They
Okay,
wanting to
yeah.
be. They listen. If I wanted my husband to be like my daddy, we'd have been divorced a long time ago.
Repeat that for us again.
Yes, if I was expecting him to be like my father, or do the things, or expect him or demand him to do the things that my father did for my mom, or didn't do, or whatever, then we would have been divorced, because he is his own person. And then we had to learn one of the key core things that freed me
Mhm.
um, was that my husband told me one day, we had 3 children, and he says, "Listen, you're relying upon me to make you happy. Don't rely upon me to be the sole person to make you happy." He said, "Make yourself happy."
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And that's another big factor in not just marriages, but relationships, period, is I feel a lot of people I've talked to, interviewed, spoken with, email, text, I feel a lot of them are not completely happy with themselves, and they're expecting the man or the woman that he or she is looking for to make them that way. And just hearing you say that, I'm like, that's another that goes right along with when I tell people, and I've spoken with people, like yourself, who've been married X amount of years, and I've heard it said in many ways that a person has to be happy with and for themselves before they can be in a happy, committed relationship marriage. So
Well, you know what the thing is, sometimes we marry damaged goods.
aha, aha. Can you say that one more
And
time for me?
we marry and we get in relationship with damaged goods, and we come to the altar, or we get in relationships expecting that person to fix all of our damaged areas.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but with an expectation that the person that we may be with aren't perfect. And then we are expecting that we're going to come along and be Jesus and his saints and fix them. And that's not the case. I can't fix somebody who doesn't want to be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to accept them, love them, put up with them, tolerate them, love on them with all of that, and then expect them and hope that they would do the same. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not always the case, because what happens is we want to give them back. And I'll go back to going to meet the family. I've seen so many couples get divorced or break up because of their children that they had before the marriage. And
Mm.
I don't get along with his kids. And so I'm done with him because he's not putting me first. And
Yep.
so marriages are broken up because of that. And then I don't like his mama. His mama get he, and we begin to pick the family members. Well, if you don't like the family members in the relationship, you're not gonna like them after the marriage.
Uh-huh. That's true. That's true. And I found that very much to be true. And it's either you don't like the relatives, or you guys, or try to just stay away from them as much as possible. And a lot of times that won't even work, because you got funerals where the family's going to come together. You got sometimes church service, family reunions, graduations, all kind of things where you're going to see that family again. And it's like, rather than have that dislike or whatever you have for the family member, then okay, well, you don't want to be with this person that this is who you prayed for, this is who you manifested, this is who you asked for. I mean, they're here, and you're going to give all that up because a sister, brother, sibling, mom, dad, you don't like them, or you don't get. I mean, you don't get along with them. I mean, you're not
You gotta
married.
love them as well because they come. The families sometimes come, although and people will throw biblical things up. Are you supposed to marry this person and cleave unto your wife and leave your mom and dad? That's the I don't want to be involved in my son's relationship and helping him make decisions about his family, but I'm still mama.
Mhm.
I'm going to still be his mom. My mom was still in my life, but she let me, um, she was my sounding board some days, but then she turned around and she said, well, you married him.
Mhm.
That's your husband. Now
Yeah.
go back and deal with it.
Mhm.
Go back and resolve whatever. And so my mom put her boundaries up. My dad put his boundaries up when it came to the relationship. But my husband never made me choose.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
sometimes we make people choose families and again, telling me that I could not, that don't rely upon him for my total happiness, that I made a decision, we made a decision to death do we part. And
Mm.
I told him, I don't kill me, but let me go, right? But
Yeah.
but let it be a natural. And then sometimes we have to stay in the marriage a lot of times because we want to break generational curses.
Yep.
If mama divorced 5 times and daddy did too, and now you on your second one because you have a generational um, identity that you relate to, and it's okay to leave if you're not happy. But
That's
but sometimes you got to break the curse
I like.
that has happened in your life so that you have sound families and sound children that will marry and think about it and stick with it. Um, I don't think you should stay in an abusive relationship. I don't think you have to. The God releases you to release yourself from someone who violates you in some kind of form or fashion, and that means adultery. You don't have to stay, but if you choose to stay, then stay and don't bring it up to him every day.
Yeah, I like that. I like that because and you brought up one point of breaking family or general curses, and I'm like, that's one question I wanted to ask also was, in a happy marriage of 40 plus years. That's longer than some of y'all who be tuning in and talking to me and stopping me and questioning me. That's longer than some of y'all been born. Okay,
Yeah.
so I mean that, and yeah, 40 years and counting is a long time. I mean, I'm 42, so I'm right there with it. But and at the same time, what I'm going to ask, when we spoke of breaking general curses, a lot of women, I hear them on social media. I hear them, they call, text me, email me, and stop me in the community. They're like, well, if my man ain't the breadwinner, he ain't ready for no family. I mean, help me understand. I mean, because I don't even know. I'm just going by what I've heard and seen in person. Who's the breadwinner, and you and Mr. Short's, family?
I I may go out and become the creator of money, but at the end of the day, we are a partnership.
Okay.
And I believe that his participation in the relation and his contribution in our relationship and I'll work until the cows come home. He brings to the table that, listen, I want us to go on vacation. I think you need to, oh, my light's there. I think you need to rest some. And so we have become, I am his missing piece
Okay, I like
of
that.
the puzzle. That when we got married, he was the aggressor, and I was the submissive one that wouldn't speak up for myself, and he would have to. I would send him to go speak on my behalf because I was reserved. Um, I wanted to work. He knew how to go and enjoy the amenities of life, and um, I didn't mind the differences. And at moments we exchanged places. At one moment he was the provider, and then the next moment I became the breadwinner, and vice versa. But we never threw that up in each other's faces of whose position it was, and that maybe you didn't contribute, or
Hmm.
because that's what partnerships do. Sometimes a partnership doesn't always mean that you are the in the hierarchy of the pole, but that you are partnering, and that each person brings something different to the table. And if you get married, it says for rich or for poor. Who says that how long you going to be in the poor status and someone else is in the richer status?
Yep. And you
You
know
know,
what? That right there, I just want to hit the pause button for a second because a lot of the women of this modern time, they feel that when they became the breadwinner of their committed relationship, they weren't married yet. From the women I was talking to, because some of them were nurses, and we all know what happened during COVID time. Some nurses went from 20, 30 an hour to like 60 or 80 an hour, and for about the next 2 or 3 years, the woman became the breadwinner, and then she wants to, blame the man of, he's intimidated by me because I make more than him, and then blah blah blah. And I'm like, listen, listen, listen. Like you said, for rich, for poor, for better, for worse. But a lot of women who would talk to me, and they say there's no good men out here who, want to be the head of the household anymore. But I'm just like, what I just heard you say is that you and Mr. Short had to find what worked for you all. You all didn't try to follow tradition or times that were in your family. I mean, did I hear that correctly? Because
and I think that sometimes we as women want to become the parent in the relationship.
yeah, yeah, because I
And that becomes a problematic, because we are the ones who think it. We see things sometimes differently than maybe men do, but that didn't mean that they yield their authority. It doesn't mean that they yield their manhood over. And that's what's happened, is that and I tell, I have 3 sons, and I tell them, you got to still be the man of the house. I don't care what conditions you may find yourself in, but you ascribe to be that provider. You ascribe to do that. And although you may be temporarily in a particular position, but I think that I hear the women, that sometimes um, we are guilty of taking the position, and then men are guilty of allowing it.
uh-huh. So y'all fellas hear that? Some of y'all allow women to be to be in that position. They don't really ask for it, but I mean, I'm gonna go back to what my friend Tanya, her man. I'm not gonna mention his name because I don't know him like that, but she even told me she's a registered nurse, and she even told me she was one who went from making like he was making a good 50, 60 thousand, and then she was right there behind with like 46, 46 to 48,000 a year, and then all of a sudden the COVID hit, and then she started making close to 70 or 80. I'm not sure what happened, how big of a raise she got, how all that took place, but she does have some side hustles. So when that changed for them, she came to me and was like, almost crying because she was upset. She felt she was getting ready to lose him because she said he became insecure when she started making more. But like you just said, Mrs. Short, is like a lot of women, they try to take, I say take the position. And I don't feel a lot of men, sometimes some men don't even want to give up the position. It's like, to me, I've learned, I mean, just from speaking with people like yourself and many others, and stories that couples, I've always said it, you have to find what works for you. You cannot keep trying to do what works for what works on housewives, what works for your neighbor, what works for your family and friends. You have to find and apply what works for you in a commitment, in a partnership, in a marriage. It's almost the same thing
And
because
you share that space, and it's okay for someone to lead at the moment to say, listen, this is what we're going to do, I think. And but let me consider, I would go out and want to purchase furniture for the house, and I had the money, I had the abilities to go do it, but then I would go and say, would you come see, this is what I think, give me your thoughts, and I would state the case of why I think we should get it. And if he said no, I had to listen to that, that I don't think that we should do it. That's not I wouldn't,
Mhm.
and God created all of us to lead.
There you go. And
You
that's
know,
another. I think a lot of couples in today, when they get married, divorce is the man may go see some of the woman and like it, and then they don't. I don't feel a lot of all. I don't feel every time. A lot of times they do, but not every time. Does a spouse always check with the other spouse when it comes to something big they may want to buy for the family, not just for themselves, but for the family. I mean, because you've been running the industry, that's over $1 billion industry. I'm talking about the hair cosmetic industry for a good while, for over what 20 plus years, I don't know, 30 years. I don't know how long it's
yeah,
been.
in 30 years.
30 years and counting. And so that's a huge industry right there. And so if that industry is the industry that okay, you know more about, you have a passion, a love, a calling for, then it's like okay, that again, it's a
You
billion
can't
dollar.
force them into that. You can't force your spouse into a space and then don't make him or her feel as though that they are less than
Mm,
because you are the breadwinner. Because it could go both ways, the male versus the woman. But try to include, try to be
ha,
inclusive. And then don't forget, God requires us to have him first and then the family.
mhm.
Um, and sometimes we don't have life and our family makeup in the proper order.
I love it. I love it. I love she. And you know what? We didn't rehearse this. Now this is her speaking from the heart, experience. We didn't rehearse this, and that's exactly what I've said many times. Probably about 5 or 6 shows ago, I want to say when I mentioned people have to have their priorities in order. And for me, it's always been God first, family second, business third, and pleasure is last. For
Mhm.
me, that's just been the way I live, even though I'm not happily married yet. Again, taking time and even learning as I'm talking, speaking with you and because I mean this is one thing I've also picked up on and people, all those tuning in, make note. The vast majority, I'm not saying all couples, I'm just saying the vast majority of couples who have been married 30 plus years, they every time I talk, listen to them, even read some of their articles here and there, they do not live by traditional times. I keep hearing it, and Mr. Short just said it. They live by what works for them. The other couple I can mention, I mean, I don't know them personally. I have read a bit of their autobiography. Was the Obama family. At one point in time, Michelle Obama was the breadwinner, making I think 6 figures, and she was the breadwinner for like 10 years of their marriage. That's a long time. But look at them now. They don't live by tradition. They live by what works for them and their family. And I keep saying that. And then you all are wondering, what I hear Mr. Short, I hear a lot of people keep trying to do is I'm gonna take some from my grandma's book. I'm gonna take some from my parents' book. I'm gonna take some from social media. I'm gonna take some from my friends' relationship and try to make it mine. And it's not working all the
There's
time.
no cookie cutter relationship.
You say what now?
No cookie cutter relationship. You just never, and each one, to each his own.
Yeah.
But I believe you have to blend. Listen. Sometimes it means that everybody transitions. If one party is constantly growing, um, and getting educated because that's what you chose to do, that does not mean your partner must do as you do.
Yeah.
And that didn't mean that they're weighing you down. Keep moving. I had to learn how to go to a movie by myself. I had to learn to go to conferences alone. I had to learn how to do that because it's not what my husband wanted to do, but it didn't make him less spiritual. It didn't make him less education. It didn't mean that. It's just that we have a partnership together and then we are individuals.
Hmm.
And as
Hmm.
long as we know that when we come home or we get into that space that we learn how to. I think being able that if when you decide to do that, you have to also be intentional to have we time, our time.
Say that part again.
We
I
can
that too.
we can have this our time that we have together, but then I also have my own time. You got your own time, and it doesn't always have to include me.
And see that, and you know what? A few shows before you spoke that, I used to say on the show, and I still do. I said sometimes couples and say, yeah, people. This is where people get on me at because I ain't married. I'm like, no, I call it me time. I said some of y'all need to go ahead and have some me time to yourself, away from the spouse, away from the kids, away from everything else, just to, to enjoy and sometimes give yourself time to miss, your family. I ain't saying, don't let them know what's going on, but just say, hey,
And
listen.
that's what happens in marriages too, though. So a woman has a baby, but because she carried the baby, then
Mhm.
the baby takes precedent over the husband.
Oh, okay. And
You
because
know,
that's the
and he don't know where I fit. You got him in the bed with us now. I can't even roll over and hug you because we got little Johnny in the middle of both of us.
yep,
And not only that, but you got the crib next to the bed, and you got who wants to get intimate with someone with a baby?
yeah,
It doesn't. You don't feel the sensual and the privacy and the
mhm,
intimacy time that's there that should be there because we have now integrated our child in the middle of our time.
yep. And I've you know what
It creates a divide.
I still remember them days, man. It's like a lot of times there's been questions out here that when a married couple has a child, or and let's say the child is grown, and let's say that because this is another thing I found about marriages. If husband wants the submissive wife to be a housewife, he also has to be with a woman who has the same vision, dreams, and goals of being a housewife, not being a
And
hustler, not being out there, go out there and be a salesman or go out there and do whatever she wants to do, clean houses, whatever, or start her own business. She has to want to be a housewife, and that's another collision. A lot of couples, married couples I've spoke with, are having is
right.
he wants to come home, have his clothes ironed, have his clothes washed, have the food ready, have all that, but she's not. And then next thing I know, she wants to be a housewife, but she also wants to be a hustler, and she has like one foot in, one foot out, and it's becoming too much for her. But I mean, when I
Or
spoke,
you can hire somebody to come and do all those things.
yeah,
If you want to go out there and be that business person, and that's what your husband expects, then it's
mhm,
not necessarily that it can't be done. It's just how it gets done.
y'all see that? Y'all hear that? Again, married 40 years, and she's telling you no clear, just as better than I can, because I'm
Yeah,
always
you
like,
just make it happen. You make sure that the dinner is prepared. It doesn't matter about who prepares it, but they want to see. Sometimes men just want to see you putting your love into. I when I cook dinner, I put me into the dinner
the
so
energy.
that yeah, so that when my folks sit at the table and they eat it, it's my love that's being expressed toward them. Now, if I ordered it from Bonefish, then you loving on the you loving on the guy that chef over there. I don't get no pleasure out of that.
Uh,
But other than I may have paid for it and made sure it got there, but um sometimes that creates sometimes intimacy leaves the house because there's no intimate acts occurring in the house.
Lord, all y'all tuning in. I want y'all to be sure you pause that, hit the rewind button, and study what the hell she just said. Because all that energy, she was all that you do for your spouse, whether you're the husband or the wife, when you
Right.
do it for your spouse, is again the energy, the appreciation. And like she said, you just go and if you have dinner for him or her, is different than when he or she sees you fix it for them. Because again, it's the energy. People can see you
That
give
you see in it.
love.
If my husband goes out there and fixes my tire and make sure the oil is changed in my car and make sure that the windshield wiper fluid is going and then make sure that the air pressure that he goes and cranks it up and I don't get in a cold car.
Hmm.
That it's a small gesture of affection, but God
Hmm.
knows it makes you want to be more intimate with that person when they've done the intimate, caring things of protection and care for you that it makes you want to get in the kitchen and cook him a nice meal.
No, those I see. And all these small things, man. I gotta have some fun for a second, man. My, I know you weren't expecting this, but I gotta have some fun, man, just to wake these folks up, man. Do y'all hear what the heck she's saying? All these small things she keeps saying, and ladies, a lot of ladies who stop me in like at the mall when I'm there at work, I try to say, hey, you can't talk too long, man. And I keep my eyes on my job. But a lot of ladies who stop me in the mall, Walmart, in the community, and they're saying all these small things like, why this, why he doing that? I don't know why my man. And only average of 2 a month are married. Most of them are just committed, trying to get married. But they ask me this question of why this, why that, him. And what I just heard Mrs. Short say was all the small, intimate things a husband and or wife can do for their spouse is what matters. And then here's one thing I don't think a lot of you all tuning in catch on to is it's a lot of times it's the things you can't always see or hear with your naked eyes and ears, but the things you feel when you see. Yeah. And it's like to me,
you got to tell him he looks good sometimes. And then not only that, but when were you the aggressor and you were the person that pursued? You started the intimacy and not waiting on him, to come on to you. Sometimes it's those things when you leave the gentle gestures behind that makes him think about you throughout the day, because men want to be pursued just as well as you need to be pursued.
I found that, and that's true. And when you say pursuit, can you break that down? Because what a lot of men and women are going to take from that is a woman wants to put too much of her masculinity towards him. Now, can you?
No. I mean that you're the instigator of intimacy. You do that sometimes. That you put some. You meet him at the door with your nice lingerie on, or you meet him, you show up at the job with him some lunch and to make sure that those impromptu unexpected acts of intimacy is what men also need. Why don't you he may not want flowers, but you can send him something else. Sometimes we are only the responders. We respond after it's been done, but we need to be the initiators and stop waiting. And I'm not saying I'm speaking of committed relationships. Sometimes some women are too aggressive toward men. You need to first allow him to make the established connect and the relationship. I believe in that once he asked me, will you be my girl? Oh, it's on now. But you with me? Because I think that's important. Sometimes women are too aggressive and the men are only there to make exchanges. And what you got to know is, when have I gotten beyond me taking you to dinner and then me asking you to become intimate or putting you in there? No, linger around. Let's go visit your family. Let me make sure that we are connected, and that we're there not for a sexual relationship, but a more lasting relationship. And that makes a difference.
Yeah, I'm glad they can hear this from a married woman who's been married for over 40 plus years and counting, and not just me as a single man who gives the best advice from experience and and others, things of that nature. Because one thing you just said, and I want the audience to make note, again, hit the pause button if you have to, is intimacy does not always have to mean sexually. That's why and Mr. Short keeps saying that loud and clear and over for y'all keep missing that. Intimacy does not always mean sexually. There are things such as being spontaneous with your spouse or partner that you wish to become your spouse. But that, and I think a lot of you women and men sometimes y'all take it too far when you want to see yourself being with this person. You want to, or you're already happily married and you feel like you come to me or you talk to me about, send me a message, whatever, saying you feel like the sand is running out of the hourglass. And it's like, okay, if you've done all the spontaneous, romantic, intimate things you can think of, it's okay, from what I'm hearing Ms. Short say, it's okay for the other party to put forth some energy
Yeah,
because
you gotta put some energy, but not only that, but some people you leave nothing to the imagination.
aha.
You try to do everything. Listen, there's some secrets and some tricks I still have after 40 years that he hadn't yet seen. And that's what
Hey,
you do that
yep.
because you don't. He's like, where did you? I didn't know you. I didn't know. Yeah, you didn't know because there's a part of me, and the more that I love on you, and the more that you love on me, the more you bring out of me.
Hmm.
And you got to be able to, sometimes I'll send him an old song on the radio and say, I was just thinking about you, and just a song, just a clip for it. And then when he clicks the clip and that song comes up, it brings back the memory. I don't have to say anything.
Hmm.
Nothing else has to be said, but it's a deposit, and you got to keep making impromptu, spontaneous deposits in your relationship, and then watch the seed grow. Because, and I'll say this, I know our time is probably winding down, but
We
um,
got 20 minutes.
you have to um, you have to get to a place where you um, don't give of yourself in the first couple of weeks of your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep the man chasing after you. And then you have to then turn the tables and begin to chase after him just a little bit, just to let him know. Because sometimes people go to strip clubs and everything else because somebody's stroking their ego.
Yep.
And
Yep.
when was the last time
Just
you
like that.
stroked his ego? Or when was the last time that you courted your woman that
Hmm.
made her feel like she was beautiful again?
Yeah.
Not, you
That's,
know,
that's
those kinds of things are important.
they are. They are. And see, a lot of people. I mean, me. I don't even have. I don't even like strip clubs. You know. I mean, I'm just totally against them. I don't know why. I don't get anything out of them. But at the same time, there are also men that I know who do. And it's like you said, being the romantic part, catching them off guard, and then also the part you mentioned where one thing I'm gonna steal from you that I love you say is when you said keep making deposits. You don't say how much or how big or how little. You say keep
Right.
deposits, and sometimes make enough just to make them curious or make them enough to put a smallest deposit down to show hey interest or shows a sign of you know still I'm still all there for you. And the way I'm gonna steal that from you. That part there makes sure I make some note of that right there. Hang on a second.
You gotta make, you gotta
Yeah,
keep making those deposits in your,
here's
and
what I'm saying that too. Deposits, and this is whether it's your partner or your spouse, because that's what I'm finding and learning that even in relationship, even in relationships, partnerships that haven't quite got to marriages, is is to never stop doing the small things that matter to the other party. And I don't want to go too far, shoot too far left. But have you? Because right now there's a lot of marriages that I talk to and hear about, text back and forth about. They talk about counseling or therapy. Could you talk about that a little bit as far as marriages go?
I think you have to. Sometimes we're in sick relationships that need healing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we've injured each other with words. Um, Sometimes we it's malnourished
Okay.
because there's been no deposits, no feeding, no nurturing it, because we have given weight over to other things, our jobs, our bosses, and let's not talk about our churches. Everything takes, our children are taking precedent that our relationship is starving.
Okay.
And
I like
and
that.
so yes, we have to go and and get counseling. Not only that, but maybe we forgot. Maybe we were too busy thinking for them that we've not allowed them to tell us what they're thinking.
Aha. Aha. I like that. I like
You
that.
know, we've not allowed them to share their thoughts, or we're too busy disgusted with their voices that we don't even want to hear what they say.
Hmm.
And so it does need healing. It needs, sometimes counseling is probably some of the best, but you can't go to the counseling if the other person is in the room but not in the room.
Can you say that part again? Because I know spouses who be like, she ain't trying to go or he ain't trying to go. Can you say that one more time for them? I don't think
But sometimes you it's not, maybe they don't feel that they've gotten the necessary tools for you to understand their community. We can lose communication, that wiring doesn't really, that we're not making connection anymore. And so sometimes we will, we're living in the house, and Luther Vandross says that, a house is not a house, a home, and if no one is living there, that sometimes we're in a home and we are in the same building, we're in the same structure, but
physically.
nobody's really there. we
Mm,
we we come there, and we've escaped through this iPhone.
yeah,
We've come, this has been, I told my husband, this woman, if you would touch on me as much as you touch on her, then I would be a happy wife. You with me? Because sometimes we touch on our phone and we rub on it and we look at it and we and we laugh at it and we do all of that. That this is the new woman. This is the new man in our life,
uh-huh.
our cell phones. And so we have to sometimes go and to reconnect with communication, that someone will give us some new tools.
Hmm.
And then we keep mama, daddy, girlfriend, boyfriend, and everybody else out of our relationship, because sometimes we go talk to the wrong people.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. You know what? A lot of times, I don't know how else to say this, but there's a lot of times when I was in a committed relationship, when I was in one, and there were times when friends, family, they would hear, I was in a they would hear I was in a committed relationship, and then they'd be like, "Oh man, are you and your girl doing this? Are you and your girl doing that? You guys should do this and that." And I'm like, "Hey," and I'll just be sitting there like this right here. And other people from friends, family, people who are, and insurance customers, they be coming to me, saying they heard this, they heard that. Oh, you should do this, you should do that. And sometimes I'll just be sitting there like I don't know what the heck you giving me all that for right now. Again, this is working for her now. I appreciate it, but I ain't trying to hear that right now.
Right. And you
Because
got to work your relationship based on
yeah, and it's
what
like
your needs are.
I'm just curious now. Is Mr. Short is he too involved with social media?
I don't know whether or not he likes, he watches a lot of reels,
Okay,
but
so,
I've learned how to. That's what his pleasure is.
okay,
It's not necessarily um anything wrong with it,
mm,
because that's him.
mm,
I like to go out, and I'm a social person. I like to be around people, and so we found our own spaces, and it doesn't irritate me.
mm-hmm.
You
So,
know, when we learn how to love each other where we are.
so you are you saying that one of y'all is an extrovert, one of y'all is an introvert? Is that what?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, see that right there in itself. I don't know how else to tell the viewers and those tuning in. Whether you're just because one's an introvert, one's an extrovert, does not mean you can't work out. Again, you have to find what works for you and the marriage, not what works for social, what works on social media, not what works for your friends, not what works for these TV shows, not what works for, but what works for you. And I can't stress that enough. And like,
Right. You got to do that. You got to stop comparing your marriage with others, because
exactly.
what works for them. Listen, I used to watch TV, and whenever my husband would come home, I started looking at him. He said, "What? I don't know what you watched on TV today." Because sometimes those things do influence us.
Hmm.
Sometimes it does awaken us. But I say, get the counseling, get the care, read relationship books that of people that whenever I was in a crisis in our marriage, when I felt that we were missing each other, and isolation had stepped into the marriage, I read this book on staying close by Dennis Rainey.
Yes, Rainy. Okay.
Uh-huh. And 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 it says that sometimes isolation will occur in the most simplest form. You on one shift working and they're on another one. And so you stop talking to each other. That sometimes we have a TV in our bedroom, and rather than laying and talking with each other, the TV has now entered into the bedroom, and now we're not talking anymore when we are to be, or there's no intimacy, because
Mhm.
now by the time you finish watching your movie, I'm asleep, and and
Yep.
then you want to wake me. It's that kind of thing that happens. And so being able, he recommended take the TV out the room.
Okay.
Um,
So, and what you say a lot, Mr. Short, is that when the husband, or is it just the husband, or when the spouse recommends something, you all can, both of you all seem to consider it from the other's point of view, or from, yeah.
this perspective, you got to bring,
Yeah.
and listen, and if not, if you want to have a sustaining marriage, then you have to learn how to find pleasures in other sources. You got to be able to readjust how you your relationships. You got to be able to do that. Move on to the next thing. Mhm.
Mhm.
um you got to be able to adjust to the next phase of your relationships, because listen, when we were really young,
Yep.
we were infatuated with each other.
Hmm.
Then we had a distraction mode when the children came along, and they took up some of our time that we had to focus on being parents. Well, as our children grew old, and not only that, but the challenges that comes from raising a family, not only a family, but you enter in your professions, and how do you grow with each other? Is one going to school and the other one, not only that, but whenever um if you live long enough, um, sometimes um, you divide, and you got to find intimacy in other means.
Hmm. And one thing you touched on, Mr. Short, I want the whole entire, matter of fact, I wish the whole world would tune in for this, is when I heard you say about 3 or 4 times adjustment. And that's another thing I don't feel. Again, I haven't been married yet. But even when I talk to couples and I keep hearing this here, it's like, okay, you're stuck in the same way you were when you met in high school, when you met in college, when you met at work.
Right.
You that way. And I just heard you say it loud and clear. And this is, again, these are things I hear when I used to interview people at the mall, Walmart, back in the day when I wrote my papers in college, was adjustment. And that is, you can't just be stuck in this one way, because that one way is going to have a lot of wear and tear in it after a while. You have to be willing to adjust to, when kids come, when careers change, when life happens, married or committed, you have to be willing to adjust. And that's another huge factor. Again, when I'm talking to all couples who've been married 30 plus years, that's one thing they each say in their own way is be willing to adjust, or as one put it at the mall, it's like be willing to grow, develop, mature with your family and with times. By that they mean life that's happening. And
You have to be able to adjust it. If you don't adjust, then you'll miss the mark. You have to be able to say to the other party that if not, if you don't adjust, then you'll never be satisfied.
uh, all y'all, you know what? I'm taking note on that myself, man. Uh-huh. I'm
You
taking the whole. I'm saying take note on that right there.
you have to um you got to stop comparing.
What they see in the entertainment world.
Make some adjustments mentally
Mhm.
about what this means. Get patience, and I learned that if I could, some people love their brothers and sisters, mom and dad unconditionally. And this book I read, it says that when you can love the hell out of them, that means that the things that you don't love about your mate, if you would just love them through all of that, then you can find true love.
I love it. I love it. I have one last question in closing for these next 10 minutes.
Okay.
Um, out of love, support, loyalty,
Hmm.
communication, and respect, which one would you say is the biggest factor in a marriage? Like this,
Love. Love.
love.
I believe that if you love, and you will respect, If you love, you'll honor. If you love, you'll get patience with your partner. If you love, you will esteem your partner.
Mm,
Um, so love will cause you to forgive.
okay.
Um, love will give you joy even when you may want to feel unhappy. You'll find uh, you'll look for joy in the relationship, even if it's a small piece, a small fracture of what that person does in your life. That within itself will provide you with a sense of appreciation and joy. Um, but the main focus of it has to be love, because love um, will cover my deficiencies.
Hmm.
You
Now
know,
that makes perfect sense as well. I mean, this is again marriage, commitment, partnership. We're talking, and again, these are everything I'm hearing you say, Mr. Short, is definitely the factors that I've heard, studied, and spoke with many others about. Again, who's been married 30 plus years in the commitment and this. I mean, it's just I'm not sure if it's my generation or this modern time where everybody is. There's even questions on in a few groups I'm a part of where they wonder like, where is the marriages, where's the relationship, where are the good men at, where are the good women at, and it's just like everybody wants to blame. And to me, I don't feel that even in a committed relationship or a partnership in a marriage, that blaming is the answer at all. It's more so, I learned from this, again, past times, that always try to take the blame of what may go right and what may go wrong whenever it takes place. If something's not going right, or again, like you said earlier, the communication, the intimacy, the time is being interrupted by whether it's kids, career, or life. It's like don't be afraid to take blame of how can we. That's another thing I keep hearing you say is you and the spouse, you and them. How can we make it better, or not pointing the finger all the time?
right?
Uh-huh.
And it's easy to point the finger, but I think if you just settle your mind and desires in on, um, stop saying yes to everybody, and everybody that looks good isn't meant for to pursue you. Sometimes we've turned away beautiful women that were beautiful on the inside, but because they didn't measure up to what you thought they ought to look like on the outside, you missed the one that you were supposed to be with.
And I'm not afraid to say I'm probably guilty of that. I'm probably guilty of that. I've had, I mean, there's been times, I mean, I could have been married by now at least four times. What I mean by four times is there's been four women who wanted to marry me, but it was just, I had boundaries and I was probably a little bit immature in some areas. But there were times when I gave her the boundaries I had when I gave a woman a chance when she was single, she had no kids, and then she would move off, and because I had to stay with my parents until I was 25 because my seizures would still I would still get hit with seizures, but finally they were gone by 25. But she didn't, and then again, 25 is a growing part in life still, so she would leave me and go be with this other man, and then meet with me and want to marry me because she seen I had my own house, my own car, my own life, my own career, and my side hustles, and then she wanted to be with me, and it was like I kind of would, she would have just those values you talked about. Be wifey material, have everything it takes. But I kind of gave her the brush off. I'm like, why are you coming to me now that I have everything going on? When
But that's what you want. You want somebody that wants the best out of you.
yeah,
And nobody wants to marry someone that they gotta take care. And it's not just a one-way street. You
yep,
want someone that's gonna that's gonna contribute
mm-hmm,
to the relationship, not consume all of the amenities of the relationship, and that you and so there are some choices, and then listen, we have to go back to the creator and find out what our role is, and
uh-huh,
whatever that role may be. um let's try to operate within those boundaries of those roles. And so
mm-hmm.
a woman can be submissive when they got a husband that's providing.
Okay, and see that, and
But that doesn't mean that you're not supposed to, and that, please don't pin me up because I said that.
It's okay. Keeping it real. Hey, just keep it real.
But you find strength. There's certain things that men should desire to do, and certain things men want women who are submissive, but they want, that means that that man is strong. That means that that man will pull me up out of, that means, I shouldn't have to go to my front door and lock it at night when I got a man in the house, because your job is to make sure I'm protected before we lay down and go to sleep at night.
See them, and that's the other thing. In closing, these next 4 minutes, that's the other thing. A lot of people are wondering, or well, men are wondering, what happened to all the submissive women? And I'm like, okay. To me, I just feel like a lot of the submissive wives and women, they're still out there, but because they've had to be masculine as a single mother, or they've had to be the head woman in charge for so long, and here this man comes. I feel a lot of times there's some wives or some women, like some, for example, those women who are wives and their husband has been overseas and they've been married, I don't know, 10 years, but he's been overseas away from the home for about 5 or 6. I'm not sure how the military works and all that, but I mean, it's like he's been further away from the house as a truck driver longer than he's been in the house as a husband, as a father. And she feels as though she has to do but so much while he's not gone. But the minute he gets there, she's in the habit of doing those things. And there's been women who tell me it's hard for her to just shake off just like that, because he's home for one Thursday. He has to leave right back out Friday night. And it's like, I just feel
he doesn't want it either. He doesn't want, listen, you're doing a good job, baby. It's okay. But it doesn't mean that I degrade him because of that. And that didn't mean that I shouldn't help out when I can.
Okay.
It should be an exchange, always exchanging.
Now that part,
to do that.
Equal exchange. I like that. I like that also.
A conscientious exchange.
Okay.
That I shouldn't have to tell you what I need all the time. The songwriter wrote, if you don't know me by now, you'll never know me. So sometimes we just got to get to know each other. And that you should be able to almost finish my sentence. But if you don't, it's okay. I can't compare. You can't make that your deciding factor in your relationship. You gotta, it is a long-term relationship is a decision
Decision.
Each person must make. You gotta decide that is what you want. And when you make that decision and you love, then it'll last.
I love it. I love, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and close the show out there, because I like everything you said down to the dime, and how you broke it down for them, for the people in the audience tuning in. Because here in Chaos Conversation, we don't know how else to say things, but to keep them real sometimes. And I can say, Mr. Short, that's all you did was kept it real. Not just, I don't care what religion you are, I don't care what age you are, what race, what gender you are. Everything you said is about, again, the spouse, the family, but again, knowing your role and being happy.
Amen.
I'm gonna go ahead and close the show right there.
All right.
Chaos Conversation.
Yeah, with you.
Yeah, this is Chaos Conversation, and we're here every Tuesday, 7 p.m. You can check us out on Twitter, check us out on Facebook, Instagram. We're out here on TikTok as well. But with that being said, we're going to let y'all go. Again, terrific Tuesday, Chaos Conversation. Peace.
Peace. Good night.
Uh-huh.